Oh, hey guys, it's April 8th, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 98. And I'm wearing my nice fluffy Crayola red colored sweater, like seriously bright, vivid 25500 level red. I'm in a good mood today because got to wake up bright and early to cast the Cole vs. Spell show match. For any of you who aren't familiar with those two names, Spell is a very famous Warcraft 3 player from Germany. And Cole's a very famous StarCraft 1 player from Germany. So we got to both see them duke it out in an awesome show match where they played 5 games. And I did the commentary, so it'll be up on my on-demand in about 24 hours as usual. Actually, that's a number I have to start saying more and more. Just like, it takes 24 hours to upload casts. So always wait at least that long. And if it's not up, then definitely come pester me. But I was kind of dumb what happened this morning because Fragster.de requested that I do the casting for the show match. And I was like, yeah, totally, all right. And there was actually 5 games played, even though it cover your ears. Even though it actually ended before the 5th game. So I stopped the stream. I was like, that's totally it. We're done. Thank you for tuning in. And I turned it offline, and the Fragster.de guy messaged me. He's like, why aren't you casting the rest of it? I'm like, oh my God, sorry. So I went live again, and I was like, all right, guys, I'll be right back. We're going to do Game 5. Sincerest apologies. Went ahead and, tried to go back live again. But then live stream just, pooped out on me, and I couldn't log in for the rest of the day, and I had chat muted and a whole bunch of people just sort of sitting there not doing much. So sincere apologies to everyone who's been hanging out in the channel all day, unable to chat because I know that socializing in my live stream is of high interest. Anyways, today we're going to be checking out some awesome stuff from the Asia servers, from the PGR21.com. I think it's PGR21.co.kr tournament qualifiers. And I always think it is absolutely fascinating to see what happens on the other servers. Because already, even with, the internet giving the democratization of information and all that, BS stuff you read in new media classes, there's still huge differences from server to server. You'd think that with all these videos and live streams and commentary and all this other junk, the players would kind of converge to around the same. But for instance, this morning I got to see the European players just doing nutty stuff. Cole skipping queens entirely early on with Zerg, just no queens, just teching straight up to a layer very, very quickly. I saw Spell use the strangest compositions of units and use them really effectively. I even saw Spell disregard getting reactors or tech labs or anything like that for a long time with a lot of his buildings. Just straight up regular one production at a time. And that was so cool to see happen. And, for instance, on the American servers, people tend to be what's the good composition I want to be massing? Get a lot of players who just love going straight Marine Marauder and that sort of thing. And it's cool to contrast it with what happened on the European servers this morning. So I'm always excited to see those differences in playing styles. I recently did a podcast with was Artosis and Louder and JP from MLG. And Artosis said that on the Asian servers, there tends to be a lot more mirroring of StarCraft 1 styles, so there's a lot of early expanding and just big macro fests and all that good jazz. So I'm super curious to see what's going to be happening in this match. I'm super pumped up because not only is it StarCraft 2 and I love doing that, but also I've had 4 cups of coffee while watching the most recent episode of 24. Oh my God, that gets your adrenaline going. And I seriously love President Hassan. That guy's awesome. Madam President. He has that seriously, super gruff way of saying everything. It's not right. He's just, oh God, he's like this beautiful little fluffy dog who's telling me about politics. So, we're actually going to be watching this replay on Faster today. And of course, as we can see, for any of you who cannot read Korean, we always like to say that everyone in Asia is very friendly. They're just wishing each other good luck and have fun. This is going to make my casting quite a bit easier because Cellawerra is the Zerg. And Protoss is the Protoss, which is good. That's that's intuitive. Unlike Toss Girl, who plays Terran. I always like the good sort of consistent naming conventions. So let's see what we have in store today. We have a map on Blistering Sands, so we're just gonna wait until we get to enough knowledge. I think that this is good enough to stop and sort of point out the possibilities. The reason I said stop right here is because a lot of players have been building junk down here. But anyways, The big things to note are that this expansion is very nice to defend, very easy. This choke is super small, so it's especially nice for Terran and Protoss. It's a little bit less nice for Zerg because you ideally would want to build spine crawlers farther forward, but you have to build them back here to where your creep is. But you know, no big deal. Still, it's very easy to defend in the early stages of the game. People do, you know, they're aware of these destructible rocks, but that's just not a big deal until the mid-game stages. So about 7-8 minutes, this actually becomes a big deal. So you get a lot of cool stuff where players back up, power really hard, try to get enough units to defend if something does come bust down this back door, and these big shifts forward, these big sprints into the mid game. Kind of like how if you were playing on Medusa in Brood War, how you play defensively, there's all these free expansions, but then in the mid game people bust forward and take down those temples that open up the back door. Very, 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 very similar sort of good stuff going on. And honestly, if any of you aren't doing that same thing in your play, freaking do it. No reason not to kill off the destructible rocks in the back. That's free. I mean, one thing that's, wow, my face got really white. It's because I maximized my notepad file here to the left. So, wow. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, for any of you who aren't focusing on those destructible rocks in the mid game, it's a super easy thing to incorporate. You just get your unit mix and you try to attack his destructible rocks. 9 times out of 10, you are never even going to attack up those rocks. You're not going to go up there and try to win the game immediately. But still, you get the opportunity to freak your opponent out, which, you know, in a game sense makes him spend money he wouldn't want to, makes him pull his troops back when he's being aggressive, and in an out-game sense, it freaks him out, and that's cool to do to people over the internet. So bouncing right back to the game, very excited to see that sort of stuff happen now. So I'm pretty sure Zerg's going to favor some form of early expand. Wouldn't be surprised to see 14 hatch. A lot of players, though, are still favoring 15 pools and all this stuff. I do want to come back for a little bit on this. Players still are favoring the 15 pool, 16 hatch style, just to make sure that they can withstand some sort of early gateway pressure. But again, on Asia, many Zergs, in fact, I think every Zerg replay I've seen but one from the Asia server had the Zerg player going Overlord on 10, Extractor Trick. Cool, just to see the stylistic differences there. Whereas on Europe, we have a lot of players going Overlord on 9, quite frequently. Protoss, I'm actually a little surprised that he's not doing this, just because I think aggressive builds where you build your gateways here are sweet, but almost certainly going for the usual sort of early gateway. You know, not too late, not up at 13 or something like that. Looks like he's making it at 12. Had the money to do it at 11. But just, you know, your usual standard aggression, all that good stuff. It's good to be aggressive early on this map, and already so smart. This is something all players on all servers are doing. Building that first gateway, touching the ramp, you know, because we can throw down a pylon here, and then we have a 1 zealot-sized wall-off, as opposed to having to use the ramp, which is like barely wall-offable by 2. So he's continuing to chrono boost away. He still has enough chrono boost left over for a zealot, and I'm pretty sure he'll be making a zealot because we still don't have any gas. And oh my god, Protoss hates drone harass. Oh my god, he's so angry. And he's backing off safely, though. Looks like Zerg was, in fact, planning on doing some sort of hatchery on 15-style play, but looks like he ended up throwing down a pool touch earlier. Pretty early pool coming out right now. Still not that... Nah, I don't know how much I like this by Protoss, the Protoss player. The fact that he has not yet invested in really any gas yet. He's just been doing a lot of antics with the probes. This actually feels less than optimal. And by less than optimal, I mean bad. I have no justification as to why he got his his gateway so early and then his gas so late. This actually makes me so curious. Anytime you see something nuts, don't immediately write it off and go, "Ugh, everyone on Asia's horrible." You know, rewind it a little bit. I'm curious. He seemed to get his gateway early. Maybe that's because he wanted to get his cybernetics core early, and he was going to delay his gas geyser. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up. These are always good questions to ask. So I'm just going to focus on this, and I mean, he got it reasonably early. He could have gotten his... God, that's loud. He could have gotten his gateway earlier, like a little bit earlier. Could have gotten his core a little bit earlier, but I think the general idea is still there. And doing some nice fancy probe stuffs. If he is going for some sort of robotics facility, I mind this late assimilator less, because you really don't need too much gas when you're getting a very fast robotics facility, assuming you're making nothing but zealots and that sort of thing. So we have some nice micro going around. Here's the scoot that you can do. Look at it as he's turning, the drone scoots off. You need to cut back in towards the drone at an angle to get him to do that. Very good to do. Just helps you buy a little more time. And 2 Zerglings come out. Very late tech by Zerg. Very late expand by Zerg. Tech seems about normal. But his queen is up. Cellawerra now throwing some stuff down. I love that that's his actual name, Cellawerra, because it's just incredibly fun to say. And Protoss is incredibly hard to mess up, so extra special thanks to both players. Looks like he is getting very fast warp gates. And see, here's that one Zealot wall-off that I mentioned earlier on that's so useful. This build is weird by Protoss. It feels like, you know, he's gonna go for some sort of warp gate antics early on, but everything feels slow. Okay, he's getting... Okay, so this is the standard in this matchup, is to... Once you get your gateway and your cybernetics core up, you make a robotics facility and then a second gateway, and then do an immortal warp gate timing push. But I think that this timing's quite bad by Protoss. I actually think he could have gotten this a lot more quickly, and even have gotten a sentry out earlier so we can throw down some force fields at his ramp. I'm curious what's going on in the Protoss cam. Looks like he doesn't have any knowledge of the tech patterns that Cellawerra is doing. We do have the Roach Warren coming down. Very typical sort of stuff going on. A lot of times we actually see a layer get thrown out. He's getting the Roach Warren just so he can have enough roaches to hold off early aggression. Also would love to see this queen moving down there. It's very good to move your first queen straight to the expo, not just for defense, but because the extra larvae mean extra drones for these mineral patches. And, you know, it's obviously very hard to saturate this, you know, and very easy to saturate your mains. So bringing that queen down is always good. A lot of Zerglings moving out. Zergling speed up? Yes, indeed. That's the easiest way to hold off these sorts of warp gate pushes. And yes, here's the big gateway thrust forward coming up. And you know, this warp gate seems a touch early. I mean, it's never bad to get warp gates very, very quickly, but, you know, still seems a little bit early. Doesn't line up with the Immortals too well. Should he choose to be getting Immortals? Man, Protoss is all over the place. I really sincerely hope we get to see what his game plan is and see it form. There's the Immortal. Okay, good. Okay, and he's building a cannon here. Premature. Very premature. I mean, it's good to have something here, but let's actually just time this out. Let's just go to the build, look at the photon cannon. 40 seconds. That's not very long, really. You can probably end up throwing this cannon down at a reasonable time. You just send a stalker there, shoot a couple times. Oh, looks like he's trying to bust up there. Thank God it's a replay, so I have the opportunity to rewind. But look at this awesome control by Protoss. Look at the force fields he's throwing down. Oh my God, this is why this positioning is so good and why you absolutely 100% need to get sentries early on. And hello, hi, I'm an Immortal. Yeah. Oh, trying to do some fancy macro? Negative. I do not think so. One thing to note, this big push, this Immortal Warp Gate push, is extra scary. Now that these roaches have lower armor. They have 1 armor, which means they take extra tons of damage from Zealots. They take a full 2 extra damage from Zealots, which is quite a lot. That adds up over time. Very early by Protoss. Very bad Protoss. It looks like he's just waltzing down his ramp, so that's fine. This is actually very good. This is actually super strong to slowly walk forward with pylons and just warp in. I mean, even if you end up building a pylon here, seems silly, but that extra shortened walk distance makes the push ever so more scary. So already I'm seeing some cool trends go on. Zerg's favoring Zerglings more as opposed to just roaches in every single matchup always. Going back here, it looks like no teching by Cellawerra. Ooh, no drones by Cellawerra? Oh my goodness, this is very aggressive. This is insanely aggressive. Now, if you're ever caught in this position where you have a lot of drones, a lot of units and no drones at all, one of 2 things is happening. One, you are in a aggressive position. You have a lot of units. You need to do something with those units. You need to make sure you have a plan for those units. You need to make sure you're not in case number 2, which is just that you panicked and tried to throw down some units before you got your econ up, when in reality you just ended up with a really awful economy. Because, I mean, 1 drone of the expansion, ugh, that's less than good. So definitely, if you have a big army early, just do a bunch of stuff with it. And if you're feeling a tendency to get too big of an army, set a hard number for yourself. Like, I will only get 8 roaches, period, and then I'll do other stuff. Because the instant you set like a in stone amount, like in the sand or the, the linoleum or wherever you are. Once you just set an exact number down, it's very easy to adjust from that. Don't try to like go, oh, I'll just play more and feel it out. Just set some exact numbers, and then all of a sudden, if you realize, wow, if I get 8 roaches, I die immediately to zealots. You can say, okay, let's make it 10 or 12 roaches or something like that. Just some way to combat this too many units syndrome. So here we have a lot of Zerglings out here, and we have some roaches. But this many Zerglings in StarCraft 1 would be scary, but this many Zerglings in StarCraft 2 is definitely less scary. Zealots are very strong. Oh, beautiful force fields. Thank you, sentries, for being so kick-ass. Look at that. Free roaches. Thank you. Looks like he is setting up an expansion. If he was setting up an expansion, I do not think he should have gotten this 3rd warp gate. Absolutely, completely unnecessary. If he's just going for a regular old Happy Time Expo, he can easily get 2 warp gates and push with these and be aggressive with these. So yeah, see, this is exactly what you should do. Oh yes, this is the sort of stuff you want to be doing. Freaks Protoss out. A lot of times Protoss comes back and builds extra cannon. And then if you never attack up here for the rest of the game, you've made him make 3 cannons. That's awesome. And we have another cannon going down here. Unusually defensive play by Protoss. This is actually more typical of American-style players. The sort of players who want to hold back and get a good composition that can defend so he can get enough expansions up, get enough money. Namely, get this expo up, and then get a big attack force and win with it. Most people on the Asian servers favor, either very cute ways to get a lot of expansions or insanely aggressive builds. So here come, look at this. This is exactly why you try to bust down the back door. Easiest tactic in the world. Hey, I want to attack the front. Let me just freak him out, and then I can easily run in here. Looks like he's backing out, but still. There's Protoss. Look at how frightened these Immortals are. Oh, gotta get to the front, gotta get to the front. Easiest way in the world to manipulate a Protoss player on this map. That's part of the reason why players do favor getting a lot of warp gates and robotics facilities with Immortals early on. It's the easiest way to have a mobile enough army to bounce back and forth everywhere. So we do have an observer out here. Is the Zerg building stuff? Yeah, he's gotten his lair. I'm going to go ahead and keep the production queue up here for just a little bit. So he is getting the, the glial reconstitution and those other awesome, sweet, made-up terms, harmonium, theistis, or whatever that is. And he's just continuing to make decent amounts of units. This is very unusual. I would actually say that this is the hardest way possible to play, is to build a couple drones, build a couple of units. Build a couple drones, build a couple of units. Honestly, it's much easier. Like, if you are a struggling player, let's say you're an aspiring Silver League player, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm just going to make drones for a little bit, and now I'm going to make a bunch of units. And then I'm going to go back to making drones, and I'm going to go back to making units. That is the more standard way that Zerg plays, with a sort of sine curve of, when he can attack and when he can't. Just because it's an easy way to have maximum troops for the attack, and then maximum drones when the attack ends up petering out, and then your opponent's on the defensive, that sort of stuff. But still, here's some more cool aggression that we were talking about earlier on. And hey, look at this. Whether this ends up busting into the Protoss' base or not, doesn't really matter. By the way, I don't know why he just built like 4 pylons here. He's like, here, you have these. But it's always good. As we know, everyone in Asia is friendly. They're very big on gift giving. And God, look at this. Easiest tactical abuse in the world. Now we're seeing why the speed Zerglings are particularly potent on this map. Why that glial reconstitution, aka the speed upgrade for roaches, is so useful. And look, a bunch of Zealots getting caught off guard, and roaches are very good against Zealots, especially in small numbers. Now we have Colossus coming out, and it's important to note what that Colossus is good at. I'll just go ahead and say it. It's good against Zerglings! Yes, Zerglings are very good. I don't mind adding on more warp gates in this situation. I think that gives a little bit more flexibility to Protoss. He has more Zealots and Sentries, so he can be a touch more aggressive. As we note, the big issue with Protoss is money. And I don't mean with the player named Protoss. I mean with Protosses in general in this spot. They just get a lot of gas. Way high on the gas count. And it's important that you just make a ton of sentries. Sentries are very good. Meanwhile, Zerg is slowly getting his economy up, coming back to the unit counting station. He still is behind on drone count, which is atypical at this point in the game. And now he's going for Spire. Ooh. Where is that Spire, we ask? There it is, hiding back here. And still, nice tactics going on by Zerg as he's bouncing back and forth between these bases. Here, a whole bunch of Zerglings running in here to a completely undefended main. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. If he just target fires that Nexus, that could be some serious trouble. But still, okay, so listen to what I said, and then listen to what I actually mean. I was talking here about, I was talking, ooh yeah, look at this juicy, fresh, ripe Nexus that's just begging to be attack moved by all your Zerglings. It's so dangerous to have your eyes get big, you know, and to go, oh, if I can kill his Nexus, he won't be able to get money from there, and then I may can win the game, because, you know, one of two things happened. One, you don't kill the Nexus, and you get really embarrassed. Or two, you kill the Nexus, but lose a lot of Zerglings in the process, and then he just attacks and kills you, which has happened to me more times than I can count in my career. So it's ultra, super, duper, duper important that you know that it's okay not to take those opportunities. It's actually great that he just ran in there with speedlings, freaked Protoss out, and just backed right out again. This is that sort of aggression that I think people on the Asian servers are particularly strong at, is this freak you out aggression. So we're going to speed things up here. He should be darting back into this main in just a moment. Again, look, just constant movement with these units. Just look at the mini-map. Just incredibly active Zerg. So look at this. He's going to come in here, and we're going to see how many probes backed off. It looks like almost a full 24 probes. That's a lot of guys. And let's try to keep track of how many Zerglings get lost. I'm actually going to slow it down. So it looks like 1, 2, 3 Zerglings was down. Maybe a fourth? Nope, that's it. Just, okay, there's the fourth. So that was $100 to stop 24 probes from mining for a long period of time. That's great. That is really good. That's why it's so good to be assertive with your units. It's very good to be very assertive to move forward, but not to be super aggressive to the point of being suicidal by any means. And again, very smart getting that ultra-fast range upgrade for the Colossi. I think it's a big blunder not to be getting more sentries. Sentries are just an all-around strong unit. Very good. Especially good at managing these sorts of counterattacks. What happens when Zerg runs in like this and you just surround everything with force fields? And if you have 8, 10 sentries, you can do that. What happens if you just dart up here and throw down some force fields? Blocking this off and then swing around the other way. Yeah, there you go. Oh no, thank you, free roaches. Oh, Zerg is so kind. But Zerg, look how smart this is. That one trick, hitting the back and the front, never hurt anybody. In fact, actually did hurt someone. It hurt Protoss a lot. Literally, the man named Protoss. And look at this, just annihilating this, target firing this. Okay, now, here is the case where looked like it worked out okay for the Zerg. He lost a lot of roaches up here. He lost a decent amount of Zerglings up here. But at the very least, he looks cool. And literally, what Zerg's doing is pretty strongly this. 78 food and 81 food, so still pretty even. That early deficit of drones looks like Zerg has caught up. And notice how I actually said that. I said that early deficit that Zerg was at with the drones, Zerg caught up. Most people would watch this game and they would go, man, Zerg was in control. He was freaking Protoss out all game long. But again, if you ever opt to make a lot of units over a lot of drones, you need to find some way to justify the existence of those units. You need to find some way to do damage, some way to bring the fear in him, some way to force him to do decisions that are bad in some way. That is what those units must do for the game to be even. So when I look at this, I go, okay, Zerg actually did some serious damage. Perhaps the Nexus helped to swing Zerg into the advantageous position to where Zerg was good, but still, 78 food for Zerg right here, and 81 food for Protoss. Protoss is still actually ahead. The reason I bring this up is because if you're the little Protoss pieces, you had all your drones stop mining. Oh, poor little probes all clustered and confused. You lost your Nexus. You're feeling a little bit red-cheeked, perhaps. It's significant to stop and say, no, I'm actually fine. This Zerg invested a ton to do this. I think the most classic example, everyone should go watch this game right now. It is, well, you know, not right now, definitely keep watching this. But afterwards, go watch Jaedong vs. Bisu on Blue Storm. That game is an incredible display of non-stop harassment by the Protoss, and the Zerg just manages to win seemingly counterintuitively, but really it's because Zerg just held down like a hero, the way that Protoss is trying to do a good job of holding down, and eventually he won. I'm loving this Overlord stuff. These things should have been done quite a bit earlier. And one of the great feedbacks that one of the forum members gave me, and of course if you have any feedback, send it to me, is to talk about things that were underused in certain circumstances. Sure, players will see this and they'll go, oh, I can do harassment at the back and the front with Zerglings. I will be the best Asian player on the USA servers, you know, and that sort of thing. But I think that these Overlords would have doubled the effectiveness of that. Imagine if there was Overlord creep extending all the way along this area where I'm panning. This entire area covered with creep. Even maybe, you know, bleeding up a little bit here into the Protoss' base. That would have meant these Zerglings would have been at warp speed. Seriously, they could have just darted right in here and demolished stuff and darted right back out. It would have made this back and forth trade way stronger. Protoss doing a good job of holding using those warp gates. He does have the upgrade, the +1 weapons. Looks like we have some Mutalisks coming out. But here, I think, is going to be the best illustration of the idea that if you just hold down, if you just sit back, comfortably defend against huge, insane, non-stop aggression, start to finish by Zerg, you are even. You are in good shape. Do not panic. Do not cry. Do not quit StarCraft. Do not create a thread saying roaches are imbalanced because we already have several hundred of those. But uh-oh, Mutalisks coming out. And this actually, the Mutalisks, I mean, obviously they're good because there's no anti-air here. Go, little sentries. Yes, Guardian Shield. Do your zap. And here come the Zerglings. But this sort of tech switching around is another great way that an overly aggressive player can make an excuse for getting all these early units. Again, you heard me at the start say, if you get early units, you need to justify their existence. You need to do a ton of damage with them to get even. A way that aggressive players get ahead is by very, very sharp tech switches and tech transitions. Just doing back and forth action with Roaches and Zerglings needs to do a lot. But if you can get him in a position where he is not prepared for Mutalisks, you're in beautiful shape. Most standard example of this in Brood War is the player who gets a lot of Mutalisks and then suddenly switches to Lurkers. So good. Such a sharp transition between air units that are good at harassment versus strong ground units that do tons of damage and are immobile. I mean, just really sharp change there screws a lot of players up. And just think of how many classic transitions there are of that. Even players who open up Lurkers and then get Mutalisks. I mean, this just such standard stuff and plays very well into this aggressive Zerg style that we see Cellawerra employing right now. Still very few drones mining. Look at this. That's only 5 drones on the minerals right there, with 2 queens, no doubt. And notice that he's even getting behind with his larva production. His money's getting a tad high, too. But yeah, that sharp tech switch to Mutalisk is super strong. Protoss trying to be a superhero here. Oh, yes, getting more sentries in there. Yes, indeed. Oh, having a little bit of a struggle bear issue. And again, this is another of the reasons why I love getting a lot of sentries early on. First of all, I think they're my favorite unit because Force Field, which I call rock throwing because, you know, looks like they're throwing rocks. Force Field's very strong, very good. They can shoot up, they can shoot down. Just a general good support unit. And again, Protoss has a lot of gas. Very easy to spend. Plus, with Colossi, when you get range 9, when you get the Thermal Lance upgrade, you can just block off all the Zerglings and Roaches and just sit back with the Colossus. Easiest thing to do in the world. Like, seriously, Force Fields right here, right now, free Spine Crawlers. No issue whatsoever. For free, those Spine Crawlers are. Sounded a little bit like Yoda. For free, those Spine Crawlers are. I'm not going to try to do the Yoda voice. I'm only good at President Hassan voice. Madam President. Alright, here we go. Trying to bounce in there. Good little control by Zerg. And look at the big topsy-turvy that Protoss pulled. 107 food against 86 food. Oh no, many players who are Zerg say, gasp, I was winning and now I'm losing. No, you put yourself behind by getting so many units and you got yourself back to even and maybe you were going to pop forward, but looks like Protoss has been holding down very strong. Here comes a transfer. Big push forward. Where are your force fields? There they are. They're a little bit late. Whoopsie daisies, trapping the own units. But look at that awesome range. And Colossi can walk right over force fields no problem. So that is so helpful for that sort of micro. Yeah, back off, Spine Crawlers. Retreating. The angry giraffe heads, aka Spine Crawlers. Not going to cut it. And seriously, Force fields right here means huge patch of dead units. Those Colossi are going to do a ton of damage. Even though Colossi aren't the best against roaches, they're the best when you can't hit them. Because there's too many force fields. What is this? What is this 3 force field usage? Look at this. I'm actually going to investigate the energy situation here. See if there are any... Yeah, that guy could have thrown a force field. He could have thrown 2 force fields. He could have thrown a force field. What's this little guy who's trying to hide from me? Here, I'll get you. Could you have thrown a force field? Yes, don't you try to hide from me. You could have thrown 2. Be nutso with those force fields. That is good. And oh no, he has fallen down, right? The Colossi look like they're not going to be doing so well. Zerg doing the smart thing. I like that he's targeting the sentries over the Colossi. A lot of people just freak out and think if I get the Colossi, I win the game. But if you kill the units that are defending the Colossi, that's a little bit of a better way to win the game. My god, this is close. This is such a nail-biter at this point in time. I mean, if Protoss regroups and starts actually making some of those sentries, and now he needs to be making zealots, his money's like mondo high, he needs to remember about these zealots, then I think he'll be in fantastic shape. Looks like Zerg's gonna... free immortal. Whoopsie doopsie daisies. And this I actually like, just a general Mutalisk Zergling composition. It's just nice and strong. As long as your opponent doesn't have too many zealots and sentries, again, it's most strong not as a direct attack force, but as a little force to do this sort of obnoxious stuff that makes players occasionally reach behind their computers and unplug their internet in order to punish you because they're angry, because this is actually very strong. And I want to say something that is going to sound ridiculous. This is going to sound silly, but I'm going to say it. A lot of times you'll hear me advocate these very safe ways of playing. You know, there's nothing wrong with darting in and darting out. You don't have to suicide by any means. But there are a lot of players who, when they see this... Actually, let me back up. When I say that, I'm trying to address the player who gets overexcited at huge swings in games. Like, maybe if I drop 10 Templar, I can storm and kill off every one of his workers. Games are not won by huge swings, they're won by little sort of chippings away. But there are a lot of players who see this, and they write it off as cheesy or gimmicky in some regard, and it's so important not to do that. It is so important. It's okay not to use it for very good reasons, but don't write it off. For instance, here's a great example. Burrowed Banelings. You can burrow the Banelings, pop up underneath a Terran army, and annihilate it super easily. At the very least, kill all his Marines. And if you force them to make Marines, for instance, by going Mutalisks, you can do serious damage to this forced composition. That's actually what Cole did this morning against Spell in the Fragster.de show match between Spell and Cole. And that was so cool to see. Yet I have heard so many players say, no, I don't do that burrowed Baneling thing because you know what? If he scans, you're screwed. And then they just completely mentally cross it off and they miss out on all this wonderful suave techniques. So definitely think about incorporating this stuff into your play. Don't do every gimmick you see, but definitely try to start incorporating them one at a time, because truly good players are very good at managing with these sorts of little aggressive pokes, as I like to call them. Zerg still doing a decent job of macroing. Zerg has been aggressive all game long. If Zerg had been passive all game long, I would have been like, oh, you naughty, naughty Zerg, kill those destructible rocks. But once again, Zerg doing the smart thing here, keeping the aggression up. Ooh, target firing those Colossi. No, very bad. See, like that sort of thing. Oh, maybe I can kill the Colossi and get a huge swing forward and maybe I can win the game. But unfortunately, these Stalkers and Dragoons... these Stalkers and Sentries, or Dragoons and Sentries. I said it as wrong as possible. Whoops. Yeah, this composition of units, these guys are going to just, smash you if you try to do those big, risky Colossus suicide plays. So, looks like Zerg is now mined out. Zerg really needs to start thinking about this third base. Anytime you're doing big aggression as Zerg, stop and say, how am I going to be taking my third? That should always be part of an aggressive player's plan. It might even be taking this as your third, or even if you're being mondo aggressive, taking this as your third. But there should still always be a plan. You shouldn't hit this point as Zerg where you're going, okay, what to do now? All right. And then trying to do these nutso moves where you run in and try to suicide to kill off Colossi. Where are the Colossi? Look at them just trying to hide. Oh, looking a little bit scared there. Decent play by Protoss. Very standard, very typical of sort of common Protoss versus Zerg that we end up seeing. But it's kind of cool to see the way that this Protoss player is dealing with this insane aggression, which is actually not very typical of play. And I love the way that Cellawerra is able to manage with this. So nice, big, strong army. I actually don't mind getting fewer stalkers and favoring the sentries. I still think the sentries are a little bit better en masse. Nice snipe there. Oh yeah, Zerg really wants to keep that aggression up. Here's a great question. Why is this something that I would call aggressive? Very easy answer. Protoss would need to move down like this to be able to hit this expansion. And if Protoss did that, then Zerg can counterattack up here into the Protoss's main. In other words, Protoss, by trying to kill this expansion at the bottom, is moving away from where Zerg wants to attack. If Zerg tried to expand here, if Protoss attacked, he would actually be moving directly down this route. He would be moving right up here. And of course, one could say, well, doesn't that open him up to being attacked here? Yes, it does indeed. So those are two things to think about. I think this one draws Protoss enough away that you can counterattack via this path or counterattack via this path. Whereas I think if you expand up top here, this path is much more likely to be shut down. So this feels like the most aggressive spot to expand to. So look at Zerg getting ready to do a big counterattack here. Uh-oh. But unfortunately, lurkers do not exist in this game, so there's no sort of cheesy defense that he can pull. I shouldn't say cheesy. There's no sort of cutesy defense, I think is a better way. And the angry headbutts from the hell giraffes, the spine crawlers here, trying to do some damage. And looks like we got some base trading going on. What should Zerg's plan be? It should be to kill this off and then dart right back out. That's why Zergling Mutalisk is a cool army. Very mobile, can get in there, take you out, and return back home with enough time to defend. Holy crap, I actually chose this game at random. And this game's awesome. Whoa, look at that awesome use of force field. Huge army by Protoss. Let's just pause the analysis for a moment and just gawk. Let's just oogle at cool players. Now, this is actually very unusual that the Zerg player would be pulling back right here, but I guess he's just saying, you know what, sack in the main, this is the only thing I care about defending. And I'll use these overlords to try to spot that. So it looks like we have a little base trading. Oh, excuse me, army, we're looking for somewhere to expand. Poor little overlord. Some nice good old base trading. Now here is where things start getting weird. I'm going to pause it in just a second and really start to scrutinize the sort of decisions that these players should be doing. Because this is such an unorthodox spot that when players see this in replays, they almost always just go, ha, that game was awesome. But it's really key to just stop. Whenever you see a game where you're saying to yourself, this is so cool, this is so awesome, you should definitely stop for a long time and just think, what would I do here? That is so important to do, so I'm actually going to take a moment to do that so I can try to think through this. Because it's not like I have a prepared answer. I actually do want to stop and try to think this out for as long as possible. So here's something I'm seeing right now. Protoss is splitting up his own army, right? We have some units here, and we also have some more units here. So, I think what I would want to do is try to go up here and try to pick off as much of this as possible. With the goal of, maybe having one muta poke up here and try to see if there's any units that I can snipe off. I'm not just trying to kill these off for the sake of killing them off. I'm going to try to kill them off to draw units out into the open and to kill those. Because I really want to get into a position where I can have just Colossi and other ground units that my Ling Muta army can be up against. So I really am mainly trying to draw Stalkers away from the Colossi. That, I think, is the best way to describe what my goal is as Zerg. Zerglings get eaten alive by Colossi. But Zergling Mutalisk is going to be damn strong against everything else. So I'm trying to get my Ling Muta to surround some Stalkers. So this looks juicy. I would be going for this little group right here as Zerg. Tech-wise, what units should I be making? Don't mind Roaches here. Roaches seem like a good, solid transition. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of an issue because Zerg has 3 drones. But still, if Zerg does get an economy up, I do not mind that at all. Looks like all the drones are mining gas. This poor little queen here. Oh, we have some more drones trying to pop out. And look at this. Very awesome. Yes, using the Zerglings here, trying to peel away. Oh! Oh! Coloxin! And look at that. Very nice play by Zerg pulling back right there. Oh, the poor little Coloxin were kind of doing their own thing. Look at them. They're so confused. And again, trying to do some more damage. He should have probably been pulling back a little bit earlier. Ooh, look at that nice units control, moving the Mutalisks away. I think 9 out of 10 players would have just tried to run the Mutalisks right over the Zerglings, but whew, pulling the Mutalisks back here, super smart. Even more opportunities to draw this army apart. Yes, very awesome. And look at this. Ooh, that's a little bit juicy. I'd like to try to be on the lookout for stuff like that. Good job by Protoss also. Trying to do some spotting here. So what am I trying to do as Protoss? Don't really mind sacking this too much. Would actually much prefer to just sort of hang back, defend until I have some cannons up, and then just go all out with a big counter push here. Maybe leave my Colossi behind. No, maybe I don't want to do that. I would probably just be patient. I have my Observer. I can keep a count on his drones. Ooh, there we go. Now I finally hit it. Okay, what I think Protoss should do is hang back here for a little bit until he can take his Observer, scout around, and see how many drones his opponent has. Because, again, just like in any other game, if you have a huge economic lead on your opponent, there's no reason to try to win with some huge all-out attack. There's every reason to just sit back and rely on your uber economy to really put the herd on so you can, eventually snap the neck. Remember, you only need to snap a neck eventually. You don't need to win right now. So I would pull back and check up on this. And when I checked, I would know, Jesus, I have a lot of probes, and Zerg does not have a lot of drones. So I think I'm just going to comfortably sit back. I definitely think that is the correct play for Protoss in this particular circumstance. So if Zerglings trying to run around, trying to do some pokes up here. But I think there's nothing wrong with just trying to hang out here and comfortably add on a bunch of cannons, and, think all what is well and good in the world. Big Mutalisk army, a little bit of a liability, but not if you end up making a lot of cannons. Good placement. Gas feels a touch early for me, but he does have a lot of drones. A lot of probes, so it's not the biggest deal. Nice placement by the Stalkers and the Sentries. Colossi need to be over that. Colossi are a big thing to take care of. Look at these. 27 kills, 15 kills. They have that many kills for a reason, because they're awesome, awesome units. No reason to leave them out in the open like that. Oopsie daisies. Some free photon cannons. I want to be a little bit more careful about that, but God, those Colossi feel vulnerable. No reason at all not to have them sitting directly on top of that group. If you're really worried about them, then split it up into two control groups and back around. By the way, this is funky. Protoss is using the 2 hotkey for his army and is not using the 1 hotkey. I guess looking at my keyboard, it's a little easier to hit 2A, but still kind of cracks me up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. There's some nice control. They're trying to do some dart in, dart out. Slowly replenishing. Queen. No movement by the Queen. Why not? Put some, make the longest journey out here. Throw some creep tumors down. Do some transfusion on those Mutalisks. Don't leave that Queen passively back there. You could get your economy up so much more quickly as the Zergy pieces. Doing a lot of good damage. Now, here I like the Colossi just pulling back a little bit because we know where these Mutalisks are. Still a real funky game. I still think Zerg would be in a good position to start getting a lot of roaches. Colossi, although Colossi are just always going to be beastly units, they're not very good against roaches comparatively. Compared to like Hydras or Zerglings where it's just like one-shot and shit like crazy. Oh, you Queen. What are you doing there? Sitting with 200 energy. Oh. But I think Protoss, look at this. I love this passivity. Oh, yes, Protoss. I love how passive that is. Oh, God. What a liability owning Colossi is. 1 Colossi is going to go down. And, 2 go down, but at what cost? Protoss should just counterattack right now and end up winning this game. And, it looks, I think, pretty clear now that Protoss is going to win. He's in the red, but he's at 66, and Zerg's at 44. So unless he starts getting a ton of roaches out real fast here, yeah, it looks like he's getting roaches. Great. Following up with the plan that I thought was good earlier, helping me look cool. Stargate, mistake. Do not like Stargate. Do not like Stargate. You have a huge anti-air army he has to run to. You don't want an army that his heir very has to run from, right? You want to be able to eventually go in there and kill him. You don't need to super counter the Mutalist, because he doesn't even have a Spire anymore, you know. I would like a little bit more activity on that Observer. Just go into the camera. Yeah, I mean, he's checking up on this Expo, but, you know, there he is. Now he's starting to dart around. I like that quite a bit. And, you know, good old cleanup. We are going to briefly go through this game before I unmute the chat, just to re-look at that super aggressive early opening that Zerg ended up doing, and kind of how Zerg got into this position, because so many players who are Zerg, if there are other little Cellawerras on Euro and on East, they'll say to themselves, how did I lose? I was winning by such a large margin. When in reality, you know, really not what was actually going on. They were behind by making a lot of units economically, therefore they had to get a lead somehow. A lot of roaches here. Zerg might be able to pull hero hold mode if he ends up attacking this at good angles and doesn't sacrifice every roach he owns and then attack late with his Mutalisks. Yeah, okay, so see how this battle went down? Just do not this, and I think you'll be pretty good. Notice the amount of force fields. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, excuse me, little Jinro. You're a good buddy of mine, but you will have to wait. And look, good game, yeah. Look how many force fields there are. Ooh, that's so good. Let's rewind a little bit, because that was a touch funky. It's at a position like this. Let's just breeze through this portion of the game and just sort of glance around at the mini-map. Just look at the mini-map down here. Look at Zerg trying to dart in. That's the first little attempt at aggression by Zerg. And oh, Zerg's got some plans under the hood. Okay, wow, yeah. And this will always look scary if I'm only looking at this part, but it will also feel scary as Protoss. Protoss is probably thinking to himself, man, I barely held that off. Oh, he probably showed the replays to a bunch of people. And oh, look at this. Oh no, killing this off. Yeah, sorry for the low frame rate, but that just happens when my computer times 6's replays. But yeah, look, meanwhile back here, this is just not that many drones. Go to the unit counting station, he only has 34 drones. Normally you'd have something like 50 by now. And these drones haven't even been around that long. Let me actually rewind to when this aggression was first starting. Yeah, just look at the minimap. I want you to glance back and forth between this mineral patch and the minimap. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Look, oh, 2 drones. Wow, awesome. And look at the minimap. Oh, he's hitting that back rock right there. See, he's hitting the rock, and he has some Zerg in his position. They're darting back and forth. Wow, 4 drones? Okay, 6 drones. And only about now is he actually starting to get a decent amount of workers. That is the key to note about any early aggression. And look, he's getting geysers to prepare for his mutatech change, which means he's going to have even fewer drones mining once again. Oh no, a big scary bust-in. This is where I apologize for the frame rate being a little bit low because we were going so fast. I mean, that is exactly the sort of thing that I'm talking about. That with all this aggression comes a little bit of an issue that you have to deal with. I'm going to go ahead and unmute the chat just to take a few questions. But yeah, with any sort of aggression always comes that huge, huge issue of how do I justify all of these units. It's way, way, way difficult for Zerg to pull out of that super mondo ahead. Generally, the Zerg player will be a little bit ahead. That's honestly why I think Jaedong is one of the most impressive Zerg players to watch, because he really is that player who can be aggressive start to finish and just makes the best decisions always. And then when you come out, he just like has way more stuff and has way more tech and tons of upgrades. God, I just love watching Jaedong play. So we're going to go ahead and put the mute back on and just take a few questions. We've been going for about 48 minutes right now. I don't know why I always say about. It's exactly 48 minutes. And, you know, while we're still here, I just want to say that I'll be doing Day 9 daily number 100 on Tuesday. I will not be having a show Sunday evening because I have to do taxes. In other words, I have to report to the government. I'm still broke. I still have, like, huge debt from school, and I'm going to more school, so hooray, debt. But I have to take care of that at some point so I don't go to jail because, you know, I really can't cast from StarCraft very well from jail. But Day 9 Daily number 100 going to be happening on Tuesday. Definitely, I would love if people check that out. I'm just going to be telling my life story of playing StarCraft, what it's like growing up in a family that's into StarCraft, dealing with the lows and the highs and the in-betweens and the funny stories. So please tune into that. You'll just get to learn more about who I really am and what my life's been like. So let's actually now take some awesome questions. So, Whoops, sorry, hit the wrong button. This is a great first question by Lucan, who says, Cellawerra did a great job with the speed lane harass, and I definitely agree with that point. But do you think it would have been more effective to throw a few banelings into the mix? Okay, now here... What do I think about the banelings? So, the first question is, what would the banelings be really good at? They would be super good at busting in the back and taking out a ton of probes. Again... Watch Spell versus Cole, which will be up on my on-demand probably tomorrow morning sometime. That is a great display of getting banelings and just having one or two roll forward to try to take out a huge number of workers. So I think that's what it would be best at. Also, suiciding to kill a bunch of buildings really quickly. Also, suiciding to kill a bunch of zealots really easily. So, although I think the banelings are good... The issue I have with it is that, given the amount of money that Cellawerra had, he was pretty much committed to doing one tech switch. He could have gone for like Hydralisks, or a bunch of Banelings, or Mutalisks. If he does go for a bunch of Banelings, he's creating an army that is overly crushable by a narrow unit set that Protoss can make. Protoss has been making Zealots, Sentries, and Colossi. And if you have a Zergling Baneling mix as the only units available after you do all your other antics, you will get crushed. There's amazing videos. Actually, I was watching the EG guys stream, LZ Gamer. I was watching some of his just practice games between the EG guys. And it was so cool to see all these Banelings and Zerglings roll up to not a very big Protoss army. Just a few Zealots, bunch of Sentries, and 2 Colossi. Perfect ring of force fields. Colossi killed everything. So that's the danger that I worry about with the Banelings. They're gonna be awesome in the harassment. You're gonna kill probes. You're gonna kill probes. You're gonna kill buildings. You're gonna kill zealots. But it's after you've done all that killing that I'm worried. Protoss can do a big attack and kill you off. That's why I think that I like the Mutalist transition a touch better. I think if Zerg were in a huge economic advantage situation, Banelings would definitely be the transition of choice. So Vorium says, in StarCraft 2 saturation of drones probes, the collection rate goes up linearly until you reach 2 per patch. I'll argue with that in a little bit. So if you have less than 16 drones mining minerals, transferring drones lowers your income slightly. I noticed that Wara had both his hatchery drones rally points set to his natural when you said he had only 1 drone at his nat. So I believe he opted for getting 22, 16 on his minerals and 2 on the gas, drones in his main, and then started drone production for his natural. Shouldn't this be more economical than a transfer? The only advantage of a transfer is that you're mined out less fast at your main. So that actually is one of those awesome technical questions that I just love talking about. So one note about the linearity leading up to 2 per patch. For any of you who don't know what Vorium's talking about, if you have a drone that's mining minerals, and here's, I'll just call it its buddy, its little pair drone. So this drone's coming back, he returns the minerals, my wiggling finger's mining. Right as this drone gets there, the drone that was mining finishes, and he returns. So you can have these pairs that just trade off like this back and forth to the hatch. And there's a little bit of a window in between there, where you actually do get better mining if you add on more drones than that. But you know, that's generally, that sort of pairing is good. What I would say is that, one, that's one of the reasons why you should absolutely be transferring your queen to your expo hatch early. You don't have to do any transfer, and more drones pop out at your expansion hatchery, so you can saturate that one really, really, really quickly. So to get highly technical, you have to do tests. I mean, you can just take my word for it, which I hope is one of the reasons why you tune in. That exactly as Vorium says, if you do a transfer, you get a hit to minerals a little bit early on. But what I want to argue is that it comes back a little bit later. Whereas if you don't do the transfer early on and just slowly rally, you're a little higher earlier on, and it's a little bit later that you're slightly behind. So that's one of those things where you really do need to test the circumstances to make sure it works out the way that you ideally want it to. But just to make long story short, sometimes straight transferring might not be best, and think of ways to get around that. Transferring your first queen to the natural is a great example of that. I also wanted to briefly say that, for instance, in StarCraft 1, there are a lot of builds where I tested that if I transferred 3 drones, it wouldn't work, and I need to have transferred 2 drones. Other builds, where I end up gassing at my expansion a little earlier, I needed to transfer 4 or 5 drones when my expo finished in order to get the just right economy for StarCraft 1. So some cool stuff goes on there. But that's so high level. If anyone's like even Gold League and low, and most people in Platinum, that's not something that you really need to work on. I think that those really high level Platinum players who are trying to eke out extra advantages should really be worrying about that sort of stuff. So, the deadly ZZZ. Actually, this is a question that people have been asking. Day 9, will there be time where you review 2 vs 2 matches as deeply as you do 1 vs 1s? You know, I might start doing that, but to be honest, I just do not 2 vs 2 very much. I literally have played probably 22 vs 2s in my entire life, and I think 10 of them were with my brother. So yeah, let's check out if that might happen in the future. Let's take some more questions, just 1 or 2 more, because I do need to eat more food, because I'm trying as hard as I can to gain as much weight before the summer. Kadrid, who I've been reading as Kadrid, said, you mentioned how the different regions have varying standard early game play. Should players feel pigeonholed into a certain style based upon where they live, or will adopting the tactics seen tonight be effective in general? Yeah, I definitely don't think it's anyone doing right things on one servers and wrong things on others. I think it's just different styles that end up appearing, and I say just try them out. That's one of the main reasons why I try to inhale as many replays as I can, why I try to do as much diversity when in the Day 9 dailies, because it's just cool. It's just awesome to see how I've never seen a Zerg do anything like that. And when I first saw it, my gut instinct from what I've seen was maybe less than good. But Zerg proved me wrong, got back into a good spot, but, you know, I just think Protoss played a little bit stronger. So definitely, as Kadrid says, do it. Do it! So let's just do a few more questions here. Hopefully trying to get some people who, I don't normally take questions from. Because, yeah, Kadrid, he's a regular. He always asks good questions. This is a great question from Cool Tech. Or Kuala says, Day 9, what units do you see and say, I need a Stargate now? I rarely build a Stargate and generally feel that other than the Phoenix, Protoss Air is super weak. So there's a lot of good Void Ray builds. I mean, just download some Nozzle replays. You'll see him hurt people with Void Rays. Oh, that Dutchman hurts people. Oh my god. And yeah, I think it's really good. But the Phoenix, I like as a unit. I think the thing that immediately pops into my head that Phoenix is being good. I don't know if any of you have watched Orb's stream. I definitely saw him do this and was like, yeah, that's definitely kick-ass. So Orb was in a Protoss vs. Protoss, and his opponent was getting a bunch of Colossi. And there's this weird thing that happens in Protoss vs. Protoss, especially on Desert Oasis, which is the map that I saw, where you get into these like Colossus battles where it's like, all right, I have 3 Colossi, and he has 2 Colossi, so I won. And I know a lot of players hate that, you know, so it feels like if I get behind in the Colossus count, I'm doomed and the game's dumb. But what I saw Orb do is he was opening up 3 Warp Gate, did a bunch of aggression. When he saw his opponent getting Colossi, he immediately transitioned right into the Phoenix. And that was a great transition because not only did he have more units, because it was his 3 Warp Gates versus his opponent's 2, but he also had these insta-Colossus killers and could lift up the remaining half of the army to continue to bolster his ground. So I think that is a incredibly fantastic example of that. So, for instance, another thing I'm thinking of is, let's say, Protoss vs. Zerg. Protoss opens up with a bunch of Warp Gates, not a robotics facility in there, just a bunch of Warp Gates, and sees that his opponent is getting relatively fast Mutalisks. Throw down the Phoenix count really high, as fast as you can, and then what you'll end up getting is a good army that's able to hold off the Mutalisks and deal with the mobility of the Mutalisks head on, but then when you go to attack, they bolster your ground army, sort of help step it up a little bit. Trying to think of against Terran. The one thing that's really coming to mind is watching some great games by White Raw, where he was pretty much going Zealot Immortal early on, and then just got 2 Stargates, got a bunch of Phoenixes, and that was awesome. And I know Cool Tech's asking about other than the Phoenix, but I wanted to answer that first question as to when you say, oh, I really want a Stargate right now, and I just think that example by White Raw and by Orb are 2 great ones. Other air. Sorry, I forgot about the best reason you want to get a Stargate. In case you're playing against Artosis and you want a motherfucking mothership rush, get a Stargate. You need to get it. Because when it warps in, right when he thinks he's won, he will type, "What?" And then you can counterattack him with one Zealot and one mothership. Hopefully you'll get a good game. Oh, man. By the way, for any of you who don't know what I'm talking about, just do a little search-a-ruha on teamliquid.net. That's a gif on so many forums. Oh, God, that's good. But let's see. I'm going to leave it at that. Because I could talk a little bit about carriers, but just going to leave it at that because there's, yeah, I'll just... So we have time for just one more question. Oh yeah, for any of you asking about streaming, I will absolutely begin streaming once Blizzard implements D&D. Because I seriously have ADD like crazy. In case you may have been unable to tell. That's part of the reason why I drink so much coffee. And if people message me in game, you will see my play drop dramatically. Like, for instance, building 3 overlords at the start of a game when I'm in a conversation instead of 1. We're talking like my overlord on 10. I made 3 of them. Once in StarCraft 1, I was having a conversation with someone, and I was 1 hatch lurker rushing and made 3 Hydralisk dens, 2 of which were touching each other. Okay, I just lose focus real bad. So, you know, when D&D's up, I would be delighted to stream my games. So last question by Crazy Glue says, Day 9, when Zerg destroyed the rocks in the back of Protoss' base, Protoss had his main army at the top of them rocks and some units at the front. It looks like the rest of his question was cut off. I will just talk a little bit about units being split, and then I'll take one more question, because that's not fair. To just sort of leave it at that. But yeah, that sort of unit split up is what makes it so hard. I think that what Protoss should have been doing is trying to get just more sentries, because I think that will help him manage things a lot. He can easily throw down 2 force fields to block that ramp, and you might say, what, constant 2 force fields at a time? What you can do is be very focused, and when you see him run up, just force field and cut his army in half so that he has a little strip of Zerglings at the front, and you can just nibble away at those. Same way at the front of your base. Just splitting up the sentries helps you manage that. The thing that you need, though, is out-of-game resources. You need focus. There's no easy way to just be like, oh yeah, you just put these units at the top and these units at the bottom. You need to have focus with the sentries to hold that off. And as we saw, Protoss had tons of gas, could have done that, no reason not to do that. I do want to say that Jinro and I have been practicing a lot of PvT lately, and one of the things that I actually learned from Nazgul, and Jinro's been making me do a lot more, is to do big warp gate pushes against Terrans early on. And if you have like 6 or 7 sentries, you can endlessly force field Terran's ramp. He can't get down his ramp. Or should I say, I couldn't get down my ramp when Jinro did it to me for 30 minutes, right? I couldn't get down the ramp. And he's just like expanding and laughing in Swedish. And it was so difficult to deal with. So I wanted to point that out just as be more creative with force fields, because you can really stretch some odd situations where you get big advantages there. So let's just take the last question. So, God, looks like a lot of questions got cut off, and I'm very, very sorry about that. Just one last question. I'm just looking for the good. I'm just looking for the money one. You know, I will just take this last question by Nayami GGN. Says, Dana, do you feel that the force field might actually be too strong in its current form? Should it be smaller or possibly attackable? I like the way that force field feels. I think it creates very interesting, dynamic, meldable battles. It creates a lot more demand for focus, and that, I think, is just key. I think that if I did have any opinion about the imbalance or any adjustments that should be made to force field, I'd probably have an opinion in about 7-8 months. But even when it's being done to me, I still think, man, that's cool. I want to do that. I don't think this is unfair BS, because there's just new ways to hold, or new ways to get around it, new things to focus on. So, like, holding the bottom of your ramp. Isn't that a weird thought? In StarCraft 2, you gotta hold the bottom of your ramp. StarCraft 1, it was just like, have stuff at the top of your ramp. You'll be fine. And now it's just like, nah, I gotta figure out a way to hold the bottom of my RAM. So you know what? That was a nice, long, juicy Q&A. And that is going to wrap up Day 9 Daily. Number 98. Number 99 will be on Monday evening. Number 100 will be on Tuesday. So thank you so much for tuning, everyone. All the on-demands will be up in 24 hours as usual because I need to do the processing. And people have been begging for an Overlord impersonation. I'll do it just this last time because this was the second time ever we crossed the 2,000 mark. Bah! Bah! God, I miss that Overlord noise in StarCraft 2. And by the way, on Monday it'll be at 10 p.m. PST. See you later.